Meeting to order. First thing on the agenda, our chairman is not here tonight, so we got to appoint the chairman to run the meeting. So do I have a...
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Tommy Scott as chair for tonight's meeting.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
One opposed, and John Sharp.
No.
Okay, I want to read something before the meeting begins, just because of some problems we've had in the last few weeks. This meeting, we are conveying in accordance with the Virginia Freedom of Information Act requirements for open meetings and the Bedford County Board of Supervisors and the Bedford County Board of Supervisors bylaws, and are invoking all protections of the doctrines of legislative immunity and the separation of powers. That's for the public record. And next, we call the order, so we'll have a moment of silence. Alrighty, next we have the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, according to our bylaws, I'd ask for you to please address the hat issue for the gentleman.
Hat is.
Take their hats off, please.
Okay, would any gentleman in here that's wearing a hat take them off? And also silence your phones if you don't mind. Next thing we have is the approval of the agenda. And anyone have any comments or changes or thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption of the agenda as presented.
All right, we can take a voice vote on that. All you heard Mr. Tuck on that. Everyone that approves of it say aye.
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 Charlotte, are you there? Yes, Charlotte. She was on the phone during the work session. I guess she's not here. All right, the next item on the agenda is...
Mr. Chair, I'm here. I'm sorry, just having a little bit of technical difficulty. I was having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the citizens' comment period, and right now, what we're going to do tonight is, I guess I need papers up there. In pursuit of Board of Supervisors, give me just a second. In pursuit of Virginia Code Section 15.2-1416D, the governing body shall provide members of the general public with the opportunity to publicly comment during the regular meeting at least quarterly. Beyond that, the chair has wide discretion as to the parameters of the public comment period. All right, I've decided tonight that in the last meeting, if you spoke on two items on my list, one was broadband and one was the First Amendment. If you spoke on either one of those items and you were here, you cannot speak on those items tonight. You can speak on any other item you want to, but those two items, if you spoke, you cannot speak again. If you did not speak on those items, you can speak on them. But we have a list of everyone that spoke. So just so there's no misunderstanding, so for the public comment period, I have a number of people that signed up, so to be fair to everybody, we're going to allow 2 minutes for each speaker that comes up. And first person I have their name is Brian DeVers.
Brian Devers.
Devers, excuse me. I know Brian, so forgive me for mispronouncing.
Yeah. I'm not sure how this goes. I've never done this before. Am I supposed to do something here? Give name and address?
Everyone comes forward, give you name and address, and then we can go ahead.
Okay. Brian Devers, 102 Winesap Drive, Lynchburg, Virginia, 24503. It's in the Bedford County area. And I've never done this before, but I'm here tonight because I like Bedford County to be a First Amendment sanctuary county, protect our rights as citizens. We shouldn't be forced to follow rules that have shut down businesses, have forced people into hardship and caused undue stress. I'd really appreciate it if Bedford County would read over the First Amendment Sanctuary Amendment and would adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, you only have 15 minutes total, so if y'all clap 10 seconds after each person, that's going to cut your time down to speaking, so you might want to hold your applause. Caleb. Read the last name.
M-A-S-T?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Caleb Mast, 1169 Hups Hill Lane, Forest, Virginia 24551. And I come to agree with Mr. Devers. I request that Bedford County would add to the agenda in a future meeting at the earliest opportunity the language that was passed in Campbell County to become a First Amendment sanctuary. I'm a current Army National Guard. I've taken the oath to support and defend the Constitution, and you all have as well. And you demonstrated that resolve when you passed not only the Second Amendment sanctuary back late last year, but also the militia resolution, which is the strongest resolution in support and recognition of the rights of the militia to train and to perform their role under the Constitution. And I just wanted to commend you for that and recognize you for that you have stepped up and proven that a majority of the board is willing to stand by their oaths, and that includes Chairman John Sharp as well. So I urge that Campbell County language be adopted here in Bedford as well, excluding that word detain, which was not proper for a constitutional body such as yourself to order a co-equal constitutional officer like the sheriff or the Commonwealth attorney to perform those actions. So that's what I would request that the board do at its earliest opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Gill.
Hello, my name is Barbara Gill. I live at 411 Lake Vista Drive. It really surprised me that when we pulled up here and they're doing the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag, and I just ask that you will think about what our rights are. The fact that Northam put out 10 people can only be in our home, and that the state police can come here into our homes and pull us off to jail. Christmas is coming. Can you imagine if you had a mom, an elderly mom, And then her friend that has been so sad that she hasn't been able to be around people. And she was the 11th person. And then they're going to put you to jail. Our Constitution protects us. And your job is to help protect us, to be our voice. And I ask you to make Bedford County safe. Safe for us, safe for the people, and that not only will Bedford County follow Campbell County, but maybe other counties will also hear your voices because you've heard our voices. So please, for the love of America, do the right thing. And I'm praying for each and every one of you. I've been praying ever since I found out about this, that you will do the right thing and you uphold our Constitution. I'm a very devout Christian woman, and the fact that our right to be able to go to church could be in jeopardy. Our right to be able to speak to our neighbors and invite neighbors over to our homes. I'm a hospitality person. I love to entertain people, not with flashy things, but with love. And I love my home to be a safe place for people to come and gather. Thank you very much for your time.
Kathy George.
How do you do? Thank you so much for letting me speak today. My name's Kathy George. I live at 1069 Rome Drive. You're my neighbor. You know, what we have happening here is Northam is breaking our communities up. And he's destroying our communities. And the best way to take down a community is to take down its small business. Our small business employs the community. If the community doesn't have a job, doesn't have anywhere to go, no revenue comes back into the community. If Northam were to go further and to stop churches community is the base of the community where people can come and worship and pray and have fellowship and rely on one another. They rely on one another. Our community, our businesses, our church, and you, all of you, are the center of this community. If community disintegrates, fear sets in. Fear, distrust, and it is easily to manipulate and pull apart. We're watching it day in and day out. We see what happens to people when they become scared. We see what happens to people when they lose all their money. Their rent is due, their home payments are due, loans are due, car payments are due, children aren't getting educated properly, food is not getting on the table. For Northam to stand up on TV and smile about having 4 businesses having their permits taken away. Small business is community. Small business employs community. What are these people supposed to do? They don't have anywhere to go. They have nowhere to go, so they come here, they come to you. I'm willing to lock arms with these people in this room. I have no problem saying, how can we help? What do we do? Letting small businesses know that they don't have to fear the government here to lose everything they have. And I think when people become fearful, they will start contradicting. They won't know how to follow through with any thought. They won't believe anything. And for someone just to let them know it's okay. It's okay. We know the Constitution blankets you at night when you sleep. But every morning when we wake up, somebody has singed the bottom of it, and we're losing it. They're trying to rewrite our Bill of Rights. I'm asking you, I am imploring you to think about the community, because once the community starts falling apart, they're not going to trust you. They're not going to trust anything. And that is not a place for anyone who wishes to be sitting in. I don't think either one of you sitting up here doesn't believe in the Constitution. I believe you want to fight for it, but it has to have, not as an individual, you need to unite together. We will unite with you, but we need you to stand for us. Thank you.
Robert Rogers.
My name's Rob Rogers, 1067 Holiday Circle. I've never been here before, but a few things have come to my attention in the community, and I really thought it would be best for me to bring it to the light. I want to thank everybody for coming here. God bless you all. The only way we really can make a change is everybody coming together and having each other's back. Anyways, I actually lucked into, I didn't know we were defending the First Amendment tonight. I came here for something separate, but I want to say I fully support this. The First Amendment clearly states that the government shall make no laws that infringe upon our right to assemble. So these mandates are definitely unconstitutional, and I'm pretty confident most of Virginians feel that way. What I'm here for is I'm here to talk about the Parks and Rec. I don't believe that the Parks leadership, I'm not going to use any names, is being run properly. I'm here to move that we reinstate the rec basketball season for the boys and girls of the county. I think it would be best for everybody in the county. I've been fighting for it. Every time I go down to the Parks and Rec, I get shut down, I get belittled, I get disrespected, and there's only so much disrespect someone can take until they take a stand and actually try to do something about it and make a difference. And if we don't stand together, man, we're going to fall apart. We got to take action. We saw what happened in the election when Donald Trump actually won this election, and they're trying to feed us this line of BS that Joe Biden won when there's documented evidence otherwise. So the truth will come out, the truth will prevail, and I want to thank everybody for being here.
Carrie, and I cannot read your last name. I don't know if that's L or U or...
My name is Carrie Martell. I'm from 720 Pine Haven Road in Fincastle, and that's Botetourt County, 19th District, so we share that with Bedford. I believe there's room in this country for liberty, which we have from God, and the Constitution gives us. This emergency order, these emergency orders that we've had from the governor for months now, at some point, it's just an excuse to keep power and to control the people. There's room for liberty in this country. There's room for liberty for those who want to wear a mask, for those who want to make that decision for their health, for themselves, for them to evaluate the science themselves. There's room for that. There's room for those of us who don't want to wear a mask. There's room for those of us who want to assemble together. There's room for us who want to play sports together, to do civic activities together, to engage in the arts. There's room for that. You assess for yourself, that's what this country is about. So I'm asking y'all to stand up for the First Amendment here and protect our God-given right to assemble peaceably and freely. Thank you.
Mike, are you speaking on something different?
I was going to speak on the same thing.
Can't speak on the same thing tonight.
You know where I stand.
I'd love to hear from them.
I said, you know where I stand.
Okay. Any other person that didn't have their name on this list want to speak? Okay, sir.
My name is Brian Markey. I live at 101 Winesap Drive, Lynchburg, Virginia, 24503, and that's in Bedford County. The executive order that Northam just came out with, 72, and the previous ones, no matter how I read it, it just violates the First Amendment. And I'm wearing a mask here for safety reasons, and I feel that everybody should make their own decisions about, assembling with other people or staying separate or coming together. Everybody needs to make those decisions for themselves. Some people might have medical conditions that they're concerned about, but just having the government tell us what we can and can't do isn't the America that I grew up in, and I don't want to see that for my kids. I want my kids to live in the same America that I grew up in, where we have the right to make simple decisions about who we associate with, the First Amendment, all those things. So thank you for letting me speak, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Veronica Shikuski. My address is 303 Westwood Drive, Forest, Virginia. I just wanted to publicly read the statement that the Executive Committee of the Republican Party of Bedford issued this week in its entirety. At the November meeting of the Bedford County Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Bob Davis made a motion to add a First Amendment sanctuary resolution to the meeting agenda. Having not had time to properly review the resolution, and due to concerns raised about language within the resolution which blurred the separation of power and authority between the board and our local constitutional offices, the board did not take up the resolution for consideration at that meeting. It is our understanding that the members of the board do in fact intend to further explore this issue and propose their own resolution protecting the First Amendment rights of the citizens of Bedford County, while also pushing back against the unlawful orders of Governor Northam. We support them in that endeavor. We also support the many concerned patriots of Bedford County who attended that meeting to encourage the board to act on this issue. We're appreciative of the efforts of Bob Davis to bring this important issue to the forefront of debate in the county. We also thank Chairman John Sharp for his courage in protecting the rights of the people to observe and participate in their local government by allowing all who wished to attend the meeting to be in the room, even in the face of threats by state executive agencies. We have full trust in his and the other board members' leadership moving forward. The concerns of the people on this issue are well-founded. While initially painting his emergency orders in March as temporary acts to flatten the curve within weeks, we are now 9 months in with no end to the governor's unilateral incursions on our liberties in sight. During this time, we have seen local businesses and the families they support devastated. Our church is restricted from ministering to their members when they need it most. Already disadvantaged school children falling further behind in their education, and as a potential resolution would address, the liberty of our people to freely move about, gather, organize, and worship severely and unjustly curtailed. While the governor is given certain emergency powers under the law, they are not an open-ended invitation to take away the rights of the people enshrined in the United States Constitution. As U.S. District Court Judge William Stickman recently wrote, "The liberties protected by the Constitution are not fair-weather freedoms, in place when times are good but able to be cast aside in times of trouble." There is no question that this country has faced and will face emergencies of every sort, but the solution to a national crisis can never be permitted to supersede the commitment to individual liberty that stands as the foundation of the American experiment. We must answer a fundamental question in Bedford County. Who is ultimately responsible for our prosperity, safety, and well-being? Is it each individual and family, or is it the executive branch of our state government? The Bill of Rights makes that crystal clear. We are. The state and Governor Northam are not our parents. While precautions should be taken during a pandemic, and it would be wise to follow any well-founded advice from health professionals and our doctors, it is the right and responsibility of the individual and a free society to make the decisions that affect his life and those close to him. As those who believe in the free society our founders envisioned, we trust the people, not the government, to make these decisions. The Bedford County Republicans will continue to fight to preserve the rights of the people and to support those in our county who lawfully exercise their liberty in accordance with the supreme law of the land, the United States Constitution. We think it wholly appropriate for the Board of Supervisors to pass a resolution ensuring that our county government will not support the violation of the people's First Amendment rights, and that freedom will be preserved in Bedford County, just as they boldly did earlier this year to protect our Second Amendment rights. One thing we can rest assured of in Bedford County is that we have elected good people to positions of authority, specifically on our Board of Supervisors and to our offices of Sheriff and Commonwealth's Attorney. These are friends and neighbors we know to be committed to the concepts of liberty and self-determination, and who take seriously their oath to uphold the Constitution. We look forward to coming alongside and supporting our Board of Supervisors as they consider and act on these important issues. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't see any more hands. Yes, sir.
My name is Americus Gill. I live at 411 Lake Vista Drive in Forest. I retired from the military last year after 27 years of service.
Thank you for your service.
Traveled the world, number of deployments, friends, colleagues, killed in action. I've been to places where tyranny reigns. I've been to places where people live in fear, where they're afraid to speak up, where the local law enforcement is corrupt and people can't walk down the street without being persecuted. It's not a pretty sight. We chose to move to Bedford as our first permanent home or residence after that 27 years. And we really enjoy Bedford and what it stands for. We appreciate the patriotism of the history of Bedford. And it would be sad to know that a place of such patriotic history has failed to rise to the call to defend the Constitution of which that history stands for. And so I ask, as a member of the Armed Services, I'm a representative of all the veterans here in Bedford, and of my family who's chosen to stay here, to honor that history and that sacrifice and uphold your part of upholding our constitutional rights, the First Amendment, to gather, to speak, to live together. And I just ask you guys to consider that. Thank you.
My name is Dayton Blackford, and I live in 1207 Hampton Ridge. I just want to say that I brought my family down here 32 years ago from New Jersey to get away from New Jersey because it's a corrupt state. It always has been, and it always will be. But it breaks my heart to see in the last 32 years to see Virginia turn blue. I know it's not the people here behind me. It's duly to Northern Virginia. And I just retired, and now I feel like I've retired to a country I don't recognize anymore. I wake up one morning and you know, we had a really good president who really was there for the people, who did what he said he was going to do, and the powers that be just attacked him from every direction. We know now that the highest branches of our government are just totally corrupt. Totally corrupt. And you can see right now, there's still, you know, we got a corrupt president right now that, well, I hope not, who is a known criminal. His whole family is a criminal. And like I said, I wake up one morning and the country's gone, the government's failed us, and even our churches have failed us. They've all caved into this too, except for a few that are willing to stand up. And I just want to say that I'm glad that the county here is going to stand up for this because it starts at the local level, right here, all of us. And I just hope that you all do the right thing. And I want to join your militia. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to have to close this citizen comment period because we've gone well over 15 minutes here, sir. You want to speak?
I do, sir.
Come on forward. This will be the last one.
My name is Ken Parker. I live at 1143 Wheatland Road, Bedford County. Ladies and gentlemen, behind me and my previous speakers, I did not know you would be here, and the purpose of me addressing the commissioner, board of directors, board of supervisors, excuse me, is totally unrelated. I thought, and I was wrong. I'm here to thank you as a governing body of what you recently did. Several meetings ago, it was revealed that through government grants to the county of Bedford, certain dollar amounts were going to be allocated to nonprofit organizations. That amount was about $350,000, and then it was tabled possibly for another decision of an additional $50,000 for $400,000. Happily, you folks increased that dollar amount to $600,000, which allowed 38 applicants nonprofit entities to receive grants. That's the purpose that I'm here for tonight, is to thank you for the grant that the Bedford Boys Tribute Center received. Ring a bell? When credit is due, it should be given. And on behalf of the Bedford Boys Tribute Center, I offer that, and I thank you very much. In front of you earlier this evening, you have an envelope from me with additional up-to-date information on the Bedford Boys Tribute Center. We're very proud to say in the 18 months that we have been open, educationally, historically, bringing the legacy of the Bedford Boys to our visitors nationally. We've had in 18 months over 5,000 visitors, 45 states, and 11 countries. So with your gracious decision-making with the grant that we received, our doors will remain open so we can have the discussions that we've had tonight. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken.
I'm going to close the citizen comment period, and now we're going to get down to the boring part. If anybody wants to leave, you can take the next couple of minutes to leave.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening.
Thank y'all for coming, and we understand where you're coming from.
Good job, Rob.
Thank you.
You did good, man.
I was a little nervous.
You couldn't tell. You look like you've been doing it all your life.
Thanks. Thanks for the support, man.
And appropriating the funds awarded. That's in the Clerk of Court's office. Item B is a resolution authorizing a contract award for equipment repair and maintenance services, and that's at the landfill. Item C, a resolution authorizing the execution of contracts for scrap metal purchase and hauling services, and that's also at the landfill. Item D is a resolution authorizing the execution of an on-call contract for wood waste grinding services, again at the landfill. Item E is a resolution authorizing a request for proposals for real estate appraisal services. That's for our reassessment process that goes on from time to time, get that rolling. Item F is a resolution appropriating state funding for the Southern Virginia Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, otherwise known as ICAC, for the affiliate agencies. You may recall that we're the fiscal agent for that entire operation, and there's other agencies that run their books through us. And then item G is a resolution appropriating the state funding for the Southern Virginia Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, or ICAC, for Bedford County operations.
Any questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move for the adoption of the consent agenda.
items A through
G.
Okay, Mr. Stuck?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Davis? Yes. Ms. Bainsley?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Okay. And the chair votes yes. Okay, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Any changes, questions, or motion?
Mr. Chair, if there's no corrections, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Excuse me. We carried a motion from Ms. Parker. This roll call vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it, no opposed. Public hearing and presentations. Public hearing consideration of ordinance to amend Chapter 17 taxation, Article 2, personal property tax, to amend Division 3 miscellaneous exemptions, sections 17-21 and 1722, ordinance 0121420008. Any discussion or questions, or Mr. Hughes, you want to speak to that?
I think our attorney, Patrick Skelly, is on the phone, and I think he can introduce that if he's able to.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hiss and Mr. Chair. Basically, our existing tax code, local tax code, doesn't address exemptions for forestry and logging equipment. That has not been something we've ever really picked up on as far as taxation. My understanding is some of our local logging businesses pardon me, are looking to move some equipment into the county, and this would essentially exempt that from personal property tax. Again, it's the fiscal impact is nearly negligible because it's not something we've picked up for taxation in the past. And of course, it does have support from our local logging community. That's the long and the short of it. Happy to answer any questions, and I also believe Ms. Creasy, our Commissioner of Revenue, is probably listening in as well.
Any questions?
We have a few people that came to also speak for that.
For this?
Once you open it up.
All right, I'll hold off on the questions. And
Y'all do it.
I know you. We're discussing the public hearing presentation on the ordinance of the tax amendment, chapter 17. I'm sure y'all are familiar with it. And I'll open that up to the public for comment. If anyone wants to speak to it or against it, come forward. Please give your name and address.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman Sharp and Vice Chair Bansley, honorable members of the board.
You're reading the right thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. Then I'm.
Share on the phone.
Bansley are not here. Mr. Sharp is safe and Ms. Bansley is on the beach in the park.
Well, thank you so much for getting me corrected before I go and make a fool of myself much further. Yes, I wasn't looking, and I apologize, but it's honorable members of the Board of Supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Ron Jenkins. I'm the Executive Director for the Virginia Loggers Association. We are, my wife and I reside in Goochland County, but we cover and represent people in logging businesses and mills and others across the state. So we're here tonight to represent some great people and to thank you for placing before your consideration We thank Mr. Hiss for all the work that he's done. I think I got one right at least. He's helped a lot just to get this point, and I'm very grateful. Although we are a representative of an association, a trade association, we're here tonight to represent Virginia loggers, so it really doesn't matter if they're members or not. We're here for all of them because this is a good thing for them. It's a logger relief that will help their businesses. And so we specifically thank you for, if I'm reading correctly, your ordinance to amend Chapter 17, Taxation, Article 2, Personal Property Tax, to amend Division 3, Miscellaneous Exemptions, Section 17, 21, and 22, which will result in the inclusion of forest harvesting equipment exempted from personal property and tools and machinery taxes. So just before I go any further, I just wanted to let you know I'm here with some folks tonight from the local area, and if I could get them to stand up. Thank you very much. And I just think they want to just say thank you or for...
Good to see you, man.
And they have allowed me to speak on their behalf, and I guess after tonight when I made that a really terrible introductory, they may think twice about that, so I do apologize again. Oh, I can definitely do that. But and if I had it right there, I don't know what I was thinking. I'd just nervous, I guess.
Don't worry about it. I don't think Mr. Scott has any problem at all being called Mr. Sharp.
Yes, I will. With pride. So as I will, this is Mr. Bobby Nichols, Nichols Logging. How you doing? And his son, Bo Nichols, by the way, who's just recovered and looking healthy. Mr. Donnie Reeves, who's also a board member of the Virginia Loggers Association, and as an independent liaison to the American Loggers Council. So he's quite got a lot of ties around the world. Mr. Wesley Roach on the right over there, and Chris Roach will finally stand. And so we thank you guys for all you do. Somewhere in here I'm talking about essential products because we compare ourselves to farmers. And one thing they have in common with farmers is that they produce essential products. And I was reminded of that this year, early in 2020, when I went to the grocery stores and I could not find toilet paper or paper towels on any of our store shelves. And they were certainly essential there. So your vote tonight to approve this just helps family-owned businesses. Most are smaller businesses. Many are multi-generation, so fourth, fifth, third generation businesses that have been passed down from one generation to another. There are no large corporations, by the way, in logging businesses, none that I know of, and these are the ones that provide that first line of workforce on a job that's generally considered pretty dangerous. And also in what we found in Bedford is a great example. We found here in Virginia 2 counties that said, we think that your idea of that logging and farming are very similar. We found it right here with Dr. Amy Johnson, who helped us get a resolution started, and one in Pennsylvania, folks over there also started, just to get us all the way through last year in 2019, through the entire Virginia Farm Bureau process, and 33,000 producer-farmer members through their 270 votes that they do at the annual meeting agreed that they wanted to support exempting this as well. So that led to ultimately a bill which was unanimously approved in the Virginia General Assembly. So we thought we were on solid ground there. They're not exactly alike, but they're very similar, and we had that kind of power in the Virginia Farm Bureau to agree with us. And right here, I don't know if there's anyone with the Virginia Farm Bureau, but if you are, we certainly thank you, because it was because of your help in that at the state of the evolution of this that we got started, got to where we are now. You may not know, though, about loggers and some things. Again, they're considered to be in jobs that are kind of dangerous. They're very risky in many ways, and they're usually low profit margins. So it's a kind of a tough business, and you have to kind of be tough to really sustain and maintain in this business. A lot of loggers today take title to the forest land, and then it's up to them to try to find a place to market those products from it. So They've taken title, they've paid up front, and now if the markets sway or go down, it can be very tough in this business because once the contract's up, they've lost that contract. Anyway, markets have been uncertain these last couple of years, and that's another reason why we wanted to ask for this relief. We've gotten, this will be the 8th county if you all approve this tonight, and we have another meeting in Brunswick this week. We think that they're going to do the same thing. So it's starting to catch on, and we really appreciate your time, your interest, and for putting this together and allowing us to be here tonight. We ask that you vote to approve the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for this gentleman? Please sit in. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
do I have the floor?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I was just say thank you, Mr. Nichols, for being there. And considering that Mr. Nichols is the owner of Nichols Logging, who is from Huddleston, Virginia, I would be honored to move that we adopt ordinance number 0121420-08.
Okay, you've heard the motion from Ms. Bainsley. Mrs. Bainsley?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Tuck?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion carries unanimously. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Mr. Chair,
Thanks, Bob. Good to see you, buddy.
real quick, before Mr. Nichols leaves, I'd like to make a comment, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
Time goes by quickly, but back in the early spring, we had a horrendous rain. And I can't remember how long ago it was, but it washed out a hole so big over in Shady Grove area that I think a big propane truck from Watts Petroleum fell into it. And there's a community over there on a private road where folks couldn't get in or out. And they had no assistance from anyone to get in or out. And that includes emergency services vehicles. And these folks were trapped and had no help. And I called Mr. Nichols, I called Bobby Nichols and asked him if he could help out some way. And he, in a very short time, took one of his portable bridges that he uses in his logging business over there, set it up on his own time, and got those people transportation or the ability to get across that chasm in that creek when no one else could do anything. And I'm just really proud of Mr. Nichols is here tonight, and that we can thank him publicly for that.
Thank you all again for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, next we have action and discussion items.
Thank
I just want to take
Thank you.
individually.
Yep.
Let's do this. Take each one of them individually.
Yeah. The first one, item A, is this was really just for informational purposes only, and you would have read this during, in the agenda item packet. And I'll ask Ms. Ashley Anderson to help me with this. But there's a couple items on the agenda that are related to CARES Act, and I thought it would be appropriate for the board members to kind of understand where we are with the accounting for the CARES Act before you took any further action on any other items. So this item here is really to provide information so you kind of understand the finances of where we are and where we're heading in terms of the remainder of our CARES Act funding.
Good evening. I won't go through everything in detail as you've already had a chance to look at it, but in quick summary, just a reminder that we were allotted $13.8 million roughly in CARES funds that was allocated out in two separate rounds in equal sums back in June and either July or August. Of that $13.8 million, the board to date has appropriated approximately $11.8 million of that. That $11.8 million includes the $1.6 million that was originally discussed and appropriated for the HVAC system for the schools, but since then, we had decided that we would not use CARES funds for that. So that's in here simply to identify the fact that it was in fact appropriated, but what you'll also see is that we are not anticipating any expenditures in that bucket of money, so we're not anticipating that we're going to do that. We just wanted to show total appropriations to date. Of the $11.8 million that has been appropriated, as of November 30th, we had spent approximately $3.5 million of that. The way that we've been handling kind of the county general bucket is we've been coding everything in the accounting system in a way that we can identify it, but then we have an opportunity to go back and really look at those expenditures and make sure that they are in fact eligible for CARES funding before we actually use CARES funds to pay for those. So that's why no December expenditures are reflected here, because we will wait till we get to the end of the month and take a look at all of that in detail to make sure that we are using the funds appropriately in terms of that county general bucket. For the remainder of the period, we got a update from the state recently that we do have until December 30th to continue spending these funds. The language says that that the goods have to be delivered or the services have to be performed on or before December 30th. However, we do have until January 15th to actually pay the invoices related to those goods or services that are delivered. Anything that we have not paid out as of January 15th, we have until January 22nd to return to the state. And they outline some specific procedures for that I've been in contact with the treasurer's office on. Having said that, at this time, we're anticipating about another $4.6 million in outstanding expense, which leaves us with $3.7 million of the original appropriations. If you add that to what we have not appropriated to date, which was about $2 million, that gives us about $5.7 million. I do not anticipate at this time that we will need to return those funds to the state, because as you'll recall, we just talked about the fact that there are some salaries and benefits that, per the CARES language, we can recover because of the nature of their position, that they are considered to be mitigating the disease, such as your public safety people, our nursing home, those kinds of things. The total salaries and benefits that we had originally estimated were roughly $7.3 million. So we won't be able to recover everything that we had originally anticipated, but we will have enough money to recover the full general fund portion of that, and then we would have about $1.4 million to recover from the nursing home. So that would utilize, at this time, that would utilize all of the CARES funds dollars that we were allocated. Now, these $4.5 million, that's estimates. Obviously, things could come in a little above or a little below, so that number is subject to change in terms of the total $5.7 million available to recover salaries and benefits, but at this time, that's what we're anticipating. Any questions?
Yeah, Ashley.
Yes, sir.
When you say you got 3.7 left, you're like, I know a couple of places where we've got charter schools, for instance. If they have funds left, where is that in here? Is that in the appropriated column?
Yeah, so if you look at the appropriated column, that's the total of what we appropriated for everything. So if you look at the allocation for private homeschool, the licensed daycare, I think it was, I may have that terminology wrong, but it was the private homeschool bucket, we allocated $1 million. As of November 30th, we've only spent about $198,000 roughly. Based on my conversations with Curtis at Renew a Nation, we're anticipating another $604,000 to come in, which would leave about close to $200,000 left in that bucket that was unspent. Another big chunk of that $3.7 million that we're anticipating having left over is the $1.6 that we originally allocated for the HVAC replacements at the school, and then have decided to fund that otherwise. Another probably bigger area where we're going to have some funding left is the broadband expansion. Originally, we had allocated $1.5 million to that. Some of this is due to timing, but then I believe it was CARES released a fast track funding mechanism, another grant that we were able to apply for and receive about $565,000 from that. So then we were able to offset this CARES bucket with that grant. So that's the majority of that $700,000 that we're anticipating having left in that bucket is from where we've received that additional grant to help fund, I believe it was the Zytel contract.
I got a question. simple terms,
Mhm.
how much money do we have? After everybody antes up, spends, receives, how much money do we have to spend?
If my estimations are correct, about 5.7 million.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
But we've already obligated the 1.6 million for the school HVAC.
Right.
So,
Yes, so of the 5.7 million, like I said, we talked about using that to recover the salaries and benefits, which in turn frees up money in the general fund. So you can, I don't like to use the word swap, but you can think of it that way if it helps you to think of it that way. But I just don't like to use.
4.1 million after the HVAC.
Roughly.
Okay. I guess, Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
How about you already working?
That was another one. This is the third one. Of the 4.1 million, you know, that if that goes towards salaries, and I understand that they are allowing us to do that.
Yes.
But we already had that in our budget.
We did.
So this is freeing up 4.1 million, and I would like to know, I would like some assurance that that's just not going to go into a general fund to be spent, because the intent of the CARES Act funds was for COVID-related expenses, and what we've got the opportunity to do is to go build an amusement park with this $4.1 million, but that's not the intent of the funds, and I would like to see the funds used for what they were intended to be used for, not find a loophole to use it for general fund.
Absolutely. So the thought process is that we would recover the salaries and benefits as we talked about, and then we would use, of the 5.7 million, well, 4.3 million in the general fund that would free up, we would use 1.6 to cover the HVAC for the schools that we talked about. And then I think it was the boardroom improvements was the other item potentially, which I think that's up next on the action. That's for you all to talk about and decide tonight. But our thought is that we could use this money to help cover that, since that is still in the spirit of CARES by allowing for the public broadcast of the meetings. And then beyond that, I think our thought process was to use it to potentially do some broadband improvements or any other capital type of expenditures that would be in the nature of CARES.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, to sum it up, yeah, I mean, and there's a couple decisions on the agenda tonight, the next couple items, that could further reduce that $4.1 million, depending on how you vote on them this evening. But whatever the balance is remaining is really up to the Board of Supervisors. From an accounting perspective, we have this money in a completely separate fund. It's accounted for
we keep it in a
completely
separate fund.
separately. It's not co-mixed with general fund dollars and all that type of thing.
We even keep the cash in a separate cash account.
Well, I don't think the related expenses disappear just because of the December 31st deadline. I think we're going to go into 2021 needing money for COVID-related expenses, and whether the grants are there or not, if they're there, that's fine, we can use it. If they're not, we've got something here that was designed for that.
And I think Ms. Anderson said it correctly. I mean, we've heard numerous, and I've had conversations offline with numerous board members who would like to have, another round of broadband grants, and we have to define what that looks like still as a group. But I've certainly heard that from the board that they would like to spend a considerable amount of that money on broadband expansion, which is certainly a CARES Act project.
But to address your initial concern, this is not money that's just going to be spent for anything and everything. I mean, this is money that would be freed up in the general fund, but it's up to you all to tell us what you want us to do with that. I mean, if you just want it to go into fund balance and sit there, that's an option as well.
Broadband's a great place for it, and so is our first responders' needs.
Any more questions? All right, I don't think we need to vote on that one because it's just an informational
That's correct.
thing. So next on the agenda is consideration of a resolution to award a contract for Bedford for the boardroom technology improvements and renovation resolution R 121-42010. And Elizabeth, are you here?
All right. Elizabeth Lowe's going to handle that. We've had several work sessions regarding this, so we thought we'd try to compile the best of our ability what we've heard from the work sessions and put them into an agenda item for the board to consider, amend, and decide upon.
Yeah, that's correct. So after several meetings with Sheldon as well as County Administrator Hiss, we looked at several options, and we talked about in a previous meeting about things that were required, that needed to be done regarding construction as well as the technical and audiovisual. And then there were options where you had to choose whether you wanted 2 cameras, 4 cameras, or 3 cameras. And based off the boards, what we could figure out what you were thinking and what the staff was recommending is that there would be 2 cameras and an accessibility ramp. But we would keep the dais in the place that it is in right now. And based off that, the cost would be $340,192. I'm sorry?
How much?
$340,000 and $340,192. 2 cameras and the accessibility ramp.
What?
Accessibility ramp, the ramp so people could come up. Now that's the staff recommendation. You don't have to have that. So we did actually go through, if you go to the second page, there are essentially 4 options. 2 of them include the accessibility ramp, and 2 of them do not. So option 1, I can go over that, the accessibility ramp with 1 camera, which would mean that the camera would be facing you, so that's what we would see, and then they would not have a camera facing a guest speaker. So that cost would be $336,517. The other 2 options are the no accessibility ramp with 1 camera, same, $321,787. And then option 4 would be no accessibility ramps with 2 cameras. So 1 camera facing the board, another camera facing the guest speaker. And that would be $325,462. So that being said, after much deliberation, the recommendation is to go with 2 cameras and the accessibility ramp.
Mr. Chair.
Does this bring us up to the digital age?
Yes, it does. And it gives you the chance to be planful.
I don't have my notes from the last meeting. I thought we came in a much lower number than what you did. I mean, nothing you told us was only 300,000.
The reason why it's a little bit higher is that we were looking, that is the total cost, which includes furniture, contingency, and construction administration. So the actual base bid, which we went out, competitively bid this out, and we received 6 vendors, the base bid was $274,564. So what I quoted you, the $340,192, is an all-in cost, to be transparent. So the actual bid coming from the vendors we came down and we were able to bring it down to a 20% cost saving. So Sheldon went out and pushed them a little bit harder, and so did I in terms of the audiovisual.
What is 1 camera?
The cost of 1 camera?
1 camera in digital age, what is it?
$336.
The quote estimated was $3,500 for 1 camera.
And all the rest of that is free and digital?
It's all the infrastructure
Right.
needed in order, it's the control cabinet that needs to be installed, it's all the wiring, it's.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm talking about strictly digital, no furniture, no, nothing but digital and 1 camera.
That puts you right at 300. Puts you right at 300.
Mr. Chair, it's the sheet that we have, that's what, it seems kind of high. The base bid on all, I guess it's 3 options.
4.
Yeah, budget 4. I can't, well, let me scroll up. Okay, 4 options.
Correct.
The base bid is 274, 271, 257, and 260,000. All those are thousands. So that bid on all four scenarios, you're talking about, that's the cost of going from an analog to digital with like the, like as you said, the closet or the
Correct.
wiring. That just seems awfully high.
Well, from previous meetings we went through, it's not just it's replacing the existing mic system, the public announcement system. We have a backup for the sound room control, digital signal processing, equipment racks, streaming and recording devices, closed caption encoder, and installation. So that is the base. And that was actually bid out to 6 vendors.
So all of those base bids, that's the upper end of the media platform when you're talking about.
Not the upper end, it is the minimum end. That's the minimum that you have to have. And then the options were 2 cameras. You have to have at least 1 camera because we got to stream, right? People have to see. So 1 camera you can just do, and that's an option. We took away the monitors from the dais, so that's no longer there. We reduced that cost. And we did not do any conference room broadcasting.
Okay, but you mentioned closed captioning, and I mean, I don't know that we talked, I remember you mentioned it, but to me, just the 1 camera mounted with, and that's 271,000 to go from digital, from analog to
The 270 also includes the construction costs, so the actual audio visual is $101,741. The construction, building and construction is $117,764.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yes.
Because it didn't,
Yeah.
we had 2, I was thinking it was 100 and some thousand.
Right.
So the 101,000 is the sound system itself, and then the 117 is the stuff
Construction.
that goes with it, like construction or
It's the-
wiring or.
Yes, the building and construction of it. And so the options, if you look on the 4th pages, we had the accessibility ramp, which we have identified the costs being $14,028. And then we're looking at the broadcast production video switcher, that 1 camera that we were talking about. But see, the camera is $3,500, but it's not just a camera. We're looking at the broadcasting, the switchers, and all the infrastructure that's included in that, and that's $37,531. Now, if you would go to the second option, you'll see there's 2 cameras, and that cost just bumps up by $3,500, so that's $41,031.
So the difference in what I'm looking at is, I mean, you're talking about spending between $300,000 and $350,000, and we're arguing over a $3,000 camera.
I'm sorry?
We're talking about the total budget being between $300,000 and $350,000.
Correct.
And we're arguing over whether we're going to do 1 or 2 or 3 $3,000 cameras.
That is correct.
Mr. Chair, no one's arguing here. I wanted to get the breakdown of the cost from the base
But I guess I'm-
What was the sound system? That's what I was asking for. I'm not arguing.
Right, and I didn't mean, that wasn't directed to you. I just remember last time, we spent a whole lot of time about whether we needed 1 camera, 2 cameras, or 4 cameras, and it seems to me like we need to get the $300,000 down, and
I have a question. What's confused me on your breakdown?
Okay.
You said 117,000 construction. I take that as like building materials and sheet rock and stuff like that. So the 101,000 is for the equipment thyself with nobody running any wires, doing anything. That 101 doesn't include any installation or anything.
No, that's not right. Do you want to go, Sheldon?
Yeah, so the 117,000 building construction, that's basically upgrading the electrical system for the boardroom, upgrading the lighting, the ceiling tiles, floor coverings. That's everything that basically brings the room up to a standard that we can do the video piece.
So the construction, you said for floor coverings too, because you're
Floor
doing the.
floor coverings are included with that. Yep. That would be new carpet tile for the floor.
So what about furniture?
Furniture is the additional $37,000 that it's kind of a budget figure, placeholder in here, $37,000 we have set aside for the furniture. So that will be on top of the 117 for the building construction.
You got recliner chairs?
Well, we reached out to Harris Office Furniture, and they spec'd out a chair. We can always go and try to do a lower quality chair, but these are ones that have a good warranty and that type of thing.
These probably come with cameras.
But that's basically, I believe it's right at 75 chairs plus new chairs for you all as well. I believe there's 10 chairs there for you all as well.
I'll tell you where you need to get them chairs from is you go to a church furniture place. That's what you're sitting in right now. You're going to pay a whole lot more going to a professional office place than you do going to a church furniture place. You can get them chairs for $150 a piece.
So what's the breakdown for the access ramps?
The $14,000 is what we've broken down for the ramp. So if you decide you don't want to do the ramp, that's perfectly fine, and you would save the $14,000. 14,086, I believe, was the number. Yeah, and when it comes to the furniture piece, we can deal with that piece later. I think what we need direction on primarily is the room itself, and we can go back and revisit the specific types of chairs. If you all would like to see different types of chairs and be involved with that process, we could do that as well.
Yeah, if I can just interject, one of the other reasons we brought this and trying to bring this to a head, not only have we discussed it probably 4 times, is that the low bid, the contractor has been kind enough to hold his price for, 60 days or more now.
Yep.
And, he's trying to schedule jobs into the winter time and so forth and so on. So,
Plus, if we're using CARES Act funds, we need to.
well, there's that too. So we kind of, we kind of owe it to the contractor to either fish or cut bait.
101, I understand that, and 117, that's $218,000. That includes construction, one camera improvements to the digital age. So why don't the bids, the bids in the 300?
You got your contingency in there.
So, if I may, so if you go back to the actual memo that's in your packet, you'll see the base bid, you'll see the furniture I mentioned that was $37,000. We put a contingency in there of $13,728, I believe that's 5%, not knowing if we may encounter some electrical issues or something of that nature. Of course, we wouldn't spend that unless we run into something. So there's $13,728 of flexibility there. And then we also had construction administration of $14,900. Again, that's hourly, not to exceed. I don't see us spending that full $14,900. That's just if we need to call the engineers for assistance, if we need some type of direction from master engineers on structural issues, electrical issues, or whatever we may run into. So again, $14,900, that would be hourly, not to exceed. I wouldn't expect us to come close to that $14,900. That's kind of a high-end number. Again, we're trying to give you budget numbers that are on the high end, so we don't need to come back and say, hey, we went over, or we didn't have any contingency, we ran into this issue or that issue. We're trying to make sure all of our bases are covered here.
Like I said, in the last meeting, when I had the other numbers in front of me, it seemed like the math came out much lower than this. I wish I had a list from that meeting. Is anybody else other than my question?
That's where I think that we were talking about the 100, but that's what we asked for it to be broken down, and that's what they've done.
Yeah.
So, I see where you got those two numbers, which is the 218,000, but just having a little bit of a problem getting from 218,000 to 300. Basically, another $100,000+.
And option 4 at 260,000. I don't see his furniture in that.
No, there is no furniture in that because, and maybe I apologize if it's confusing. So what we were actually trying to show was what was bid. So what we put in the resolution was the all-in cost, because while you have a bid that says What we're recommending is accessibility ramp with 2 cameras, $274,564, which is actually 20% lower than what we presented previously. We did not want to hide the other cost that would be needed in order to get the room fixed. So that was the furniture cost, that was $37,000, which was also like the contingency, the 5%, which is $13,000, and the construction administration, which is about $14,900. That's why you're seeing it $340,192. The actual bid that the vendor provided was $274,564.
That includes the access ramp, right?
That includes the access ramp.
So we'll take 14 off for that.
If you want to do that, you can do that.
And I think even looking at option 2, because I'm telling you, we can get those chairs cheaper than $37,000. I'll go find them myself. And if all goes well, and you don't have to dip into contingencies and run into anything else, I think you're at the 300. And if you do away with the ramp, you're under it.
And if I may, when we first presented this to you all a couple months ago, we were looking at a range of basically $386,000 to $411,000 all in. So we have whittled it down quite a bit from the original discussion, from $386 to $410. Again, that was depending on if we rotated the dais or not. So $386 to $410 was our original projection, and now we're much lower.
In the end, I think like the cost is not to be, I mean, the cost is important, but it's also the functionality of what you're getting. So we have like tried to be as prudent and make sure that the function to get the room, like you said, into the digital age, making it accessible for folks who are either watching from home so that they can hear and whatnot, and so that we're not, as you can see, I mean, we are trying to make it work with these conference room phones. The mics are not great, and it works, but it's not easy for somebody who's watching at home or listening. So I think this also goes to the John Sharp's question of being transparent and wanting to be open government. So this all feeds into that, as well as for COVID be able to do this more remotely and more easily for staff to support it. There's a lot of effort for staff to get this set up, and you know, it is what it is, and we're willing to do that, but we have the opportunity now with the COVID funding, the CARES funding, and with what we know is happening. The FCC is not going to support analog any longer. I don't know when it's going to stop, but it's going to happen soon. And at that point, you're going to have to move. And none of this is going to be able to be supported. So I guess where Sheldon and I are coming from, this is a great opportunity for you to take, and so that we can get ahead of the game before we get behind of it.
If I may add just one more quick thing, the $37,000 in office furniture assumes that we are going to build the ramp. So there's some wiggle room built in there to relocate the county administrator, the county attorney, and the clerk to the center portion of the room. So there's also furniture in there for that piece as well. So there's several $1,000s that we had set aside for furniture to move those staff members to the center of the room. So if you decide you don't want to build the dais, there's several $1,000s that will come off the 37. And again, like Supervisor Tuck said, we can do more research and see if there's a cheaper, more folding chairs or whatever the other options might be as far as furnitures go.
Any more questions, discussion?
I just think I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I certainly hope we don't resort to going to folding chairs. But, I'm hearing the discussion, and this thing has been drug on quite a while. I don't know where you guys are on the 1 camera versus 2. I probably prefer the 2 just because there's only $3,500 and it allows the speaker to be on camera as well. But I'm not going to die on that hill. But I do think that the ramp, this is probably the time to do that if we're going to do it at all. And the cost associated with the ramp, I I don't ever want someone to be discouraged from running for, or serving on the planning commission or the board of supervisors because of, some disability. And, I just see the ramp as, it's probably a lot cheaper if we just go ahead and get it done now as part of this project versus if we're having to do it out of necessity at some future point. So I would lean towards either option 2 or option 1, depending on if you guys want 2 cameras or the 1. But those are the ones that I would support.
Mr. Chair, I was going to say the same thing, option 1 or option 2. I think while we are changing carpet, and it's just, as a project management type of situation, it's a good time then to also do the ramp. And as far as the chairs, again, it's a good time to get rid of the pews and put in some padded chairs. If they're padded church chairs, I don't want to do folding chairs, but I think option 1 or 2.
Anybody else have anything?
I like the option 1 with 2 cameras. I like the option with 2 cameras and the handicap accessible ramp.
We discussed you can have a lift put out there on the end, and then you don't have to change any of that around, move them over here, or any of that stuff. By changing them around, we keep jacking the price on up. So,
Was there any cost to that lift? I mean,
I
did we
think
get any idea on that?
The concern with the lift was the cost of purchasing it and maintaining it, and plus the size that it's going to take up in the room. The engineers had some concern with doing the lift. For the $14,000, you might, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but you might get more bang for your buck doing the ramp in lieu of doing the lift. And then the lift, of course, has maintenance issues associated with it, and the power goes out or whatever else might happen, whereas the ramp is there and it works.
power goes out, you have to wood unless you got a generator.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want to
You
have,
can buy a lift for a lot less than $14,000. I know we have them in ADA compliant swimming pools and hotels, and semi-public pools. And
It-
it's less than half that.
and there's different types of lift. I don't know that if do we want to transfer someone from a wheelchair onto a lift, or do we want to be able to lift that entire wheelchair up? I think that's one of our concerns too, is do we want it to be something that's,
Liability.
from a liability perspective, do we want to have to transfer someone to a lift seat versus something that you can put the entire chair on?
This board's been here for a lot of years without any issues on the handicap. And I hate to see spending money on something you anticipate you don't need.
Which is why we go with the ramp.
I mean, to me, it's just, I could go with the 1 camera option if I'm gonna do this. Granted, it's only $3,500, but that's $3,500. You add that up several times over the course of a year or years. Look around this room. There's hardly anybody in this room listening to this and or watching. I just think it's a mistake to go this far, televising this to so many people who probably aren't going to watch it. I know when I'm done with this board, the last thing I'm going to do is watch this.
You'll have every season recorded.
I would go with 1 camera and then no ramp. And get the ramp someday when you need it, if that day ever comes.
Did you have the numbers from the previous meeting? Because that's where I thought they were way lower than we.
All right, so I think where the confusion is coming from. At the last meeting, we were talking about the base bid price. So the base bid price, excluding furniture, excluding contingency, and excluding construction administration. So that was the numbers we were looking at last time. So I printed the PowerPoint that we looked at last time. So the building construction alone was either 132 or 117, depending upon whether or not we moved the dais. And it was the direction of the board that we wouldn't move the dais. So we took it down to the 117. And that's the same number you're seeing tonight, is the 117 for the building construction piece. So I think where the confusion is coming from is Tonight, we're going all in with all the different aspects of the project, not just the base bid, but we're adding the furniture in as well as the contingency and project administration.
The problem I have, and I'm open, we don't need to beat this horse anymore, but
Thank you.
from telling me not to build everything over there on that wall, it's only gonna reduce the price by
30.
$17,000.
It was $31,000. It was originally 25. We went back to the contractor after we heard from the board, and we got the 25 turned into 31. So it's a $31,000 savings if we don't move the dies. But that includes building the ramp.
That bothers me because I know it costs a whole lot more money to build that over there. Using raised panels, doing a whole new outfit, and I know it costs a lot more money than that.
Yeah, the actual casework figure alone was $25,702 for the original bid for moving the dies. $25,702. I'm sorry, building the dies. I'm sorry, not moving this one, but having a new one on that side was $25,702.
Good luck with all buildings.
Yeah, I don't have the subs identified, so I don't know who the sub was for that $25,702.
Okay, anybody want to make a recommendation or?
Well, we heard what some of us want. What are the ones we haven't heard from? What do they want? I want 2 cameras and a ramp.
I would like to see this, I can go in for the 2 cameras, I'd like to see us do 2 cameras without the ramp.
I'm in favor of 1 camera without the ramp.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's just hash this out now. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve option 2.
That was 320,
340.
340. 340, 192.
How many cameras is that?
2 cameras.
Yep.
All right, read us everything option 2 covers again, please.
Okay. All right. So option 2 is building the accessibility ramp with 2 cameras, 1 facing the Board of Supervisors and 1 facing the guest speaker for $340,192. That does include furniture, contingency, and construction administration costs, so all-in cost.
And the motion's on the floor.
All right, you heard Mr. Sharp's motion. Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Ms. Bainsley?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Tuck?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
No.
Mr. Davis? No. Chair votes no. I think it was
4-3.
4-3. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And we will look at some other furniture options to try to get that $37,000
Like me to text it
reduced.
to you, I just pulled it up for $55 a piece.
So we will look at some other
Let's
options.
form a one-man committee.
So we'll get that price down.
And they're very comfortable.
They're the ones we got, aren't they?
All right, next on the agenda, consider a resolution to appropriate CARES Act funds for the priority dispatch R121420-11. Director Justin Smith.
All right, while he's walking up here, I don't know if all the board has had the pleasure of meeting Judson. He joined us as a new 911 director following Jeff Johnson's retirement after long serving in the 911 center. Judson started first half of October, I forget the exact date. He might remember the exact
October
date.
5th, yes, sir.
15th. And he came from us, from Surrey County, Virginia, where he held a similar position, and he's also been a small business operator and owner as well with a staffing agency for paramedics and EMT service as well. So he has a good career in public safety in general, and also with 911. And he's hit the ground running over the last couple months. And anyways, this is a concept that they have identified, and I'll let him present it.
Okay, Justin, thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you for your time, members of the board. So tonight I'm bringing forward a request to appropriate funds from the CARES Act for the priority dispatch system. In my first few months, one of the biggest things I want to do is stand back, speak to the employees there, see how the center was operating, and see areas of improvements and things that were needed. One of the biggest things that stood out as needed is improvement in our current policies and procedures that we have that need to be updated, and our protocols when taking emergency and non-emergency calls in the center. In your packet there, I know you've got some statistics. We average about over 14,000 phone calls a month into our center, so our dispatchers stay very busy on a daily basis. And it's very important for us to make sure that we have a very structured and up-to-date call-taking protocol in the center. As you probably know, this is very important for multiple reasons. One is for the safety of our responders. It's very important when we're taking our calls that we're obtaining all of the information needed to make sure that the officers as well as fire EMS know of any kind of safety concerns and what they're getting ready to walk into prior to arriving on scene, as we are their first bit of information that they receive. It's also important to make sure that we're providing the highest quality of care prior to the responders arriving. It is our job to make sure that we're providing medical instructions as well as safety instructions to our callers prior to first responders arriving on scene. And also making sure that from a liability standpoint, we're doing everything correctly. It's very important to make sure that we have approved questions and approved instructions that are given out in a consistent manner to our callers, just for the liability perspective of things. Currently, we're using a APCO EMD, so emergency medical dispatch, and an emergency fire dispatch card set for call taking. So that is truly a card set. We've got 2 card sets that sit on our desk, and we flip through them to get to the call type that we're handling on that 911 call, to try to read through the different questions that are presented on there and decipher which ones are appropriate versus not appropriate at the time. And then we give instructions to the callers based on what they're calling in for. We currently do not have a current protocol in place for the law enforcement calls that we take. So these questions are just determined from the training that the dispatchers get while they're going through their training on initial hire. So it's up for them to kind of remember the different questions for the different call types. And we currently have about 100 different law enforcement call types, so it can be a lot of information for the dispatchers to try to remember. Currently, the emergency medical and emergency fire dispatch cards are outdated, and they need to be updated, reviewed, new questions, new instructions, just with the change in their industry. They are approximately 10 years or more old, so they need to be reviewed. So in that's why I'm presenting to you guys tonight the priority dispatch system. The priority dispatch system would allow us to take our current card sets and go to a different system, but it would make it to be an electronic system that would integrate with our new CAD system that we are currently in the process of implementing. It would allow us law enforcement call protocols to be implemented, which we currently do not have. And would also allow improved instructions to be given to our callers when they call into the 911 center. This has been vetted and demoed to our agencies that we use. So Fire and Rescue has been able to see this product, and Chief Jones fully supports it. We've also had the opportunity to show it to the Bedford County Sheriff's Office and the Bedford Police Department, and they are both in support of going to this and feel like it would be a great benefit not only to their officers but to the citizens. We do have many agencies around us that are currently using this. Lynchburg Communications Center uses it. The Pittsylvania County uses this system as well. Botetourt County is currently in the process of going from the current APCO, which is what we use, to the priority dispatch. And then there's several other agencies. It's widely used across the state of Virginia. So before you'll see a proposal. The proposal is for the $347,253.80. This is the all-in cost that would cover the implementation, all of the licensing, all of the training, and would cover us for the first 5 years. And then after, on year 6, we would have to start taking into consideration a yearly maintenance service fee. In that yearly fee, that would cover our license. It would cover all of the updates to the protocol. So anytime new things come out, it would it would go ahead and give us those updates automatically. We would not have to review this yearly with our fire rescue and our law enforcement to change our call types and to ask different questions. It also provides additional training for the dispatcher, so it gives them access to the Academy Emergency Dispatch Academy, which gives them online training that they can use, as well as in-person classes is provided as well. So it would also meet the need of increased training for our dispatchers. In all of this system, one thing that Priority Dispatch does that most of the other system doesn't is it incorporates the COVID concerns or the coronavirus concerns, as well as future pandemics to go. So in addition to the normal questions that we would ask for law enforcement, fire, or rescue, it would also incorporate the COVID concern questions to make sure that we're protecting our responders prior to getting on scene in the event of a potential COVID exposure to the residents they may be responding to. It also does provide analytics, which is one of the first watch sheet that you have in your packet there, provides analytics that especially for Chief Jones could use to track the amount of COVID exposures we're potentially having and the exposures across the county. He could watch that and monitor that as well. So that's the proposal that you have in front of you. Just after speaking to Mr. Hiss, we felt like it was appropriate to go ahead and try to go with the cost of the $347,000, so that way we could not have to worry about a yearly expense for the first 5 years of this project.
Okay, any questions?
As I understand, this would be paid for with CARES Act.
Yes, sir. And the only thing we would have to, on year 6, we would have to start worrying up, or we have to budget in the annual costs. Currently, the annual cost is roughly, I would say roughly $30,000. It was started around $27,000. It went up year 4 and 5 to just under $28,000. So I just said roughly $30,000. I did speak and got Bedford Police Department as well. Bedford Fire Department did seek approval that the town of Bedford will provide $5,000 a year to go towards the annual maintenance costs when we do start accruing that as well. Just since we do dispatch for them, they would like to participate in it because they felt that the system was very important and be a good asset to the community.
Only, it sounds great, I'm not against it, but I just keep in mind, every time we have a meeting, we keep chopping away at this CARES Act. And the broadband is going to be something that we're going to need a lot of money to fix. And keep chopping away at it pretty soon. I'm not going to have any money.
And if I may, we certainly can look at the option of just doing the initial costs up front and then going ahead and accruing the yearly maintenance costs on year 2, which would decrease the initial amount that would come out of CARES Act money, but we would have to go ahead in year 2 and start appropriating the money for the yearly maintenance.
Well, then that comes out of us.
Correct, yes, sir.
So what's the initial cost?
The initial cost without doing the first 5 years of maintenance would put us at $231,903.80. And then on year 2, we would accrue a $27,000 yearly maintenance fee.
Any comments?
Well, what's the alternative?
The alternative is that we would continue to use our current system. We would have to take the time, or not take the time, but we'd have to get fire and rescue together as well to go over all the current card sets, change the questions, and increase the instructions that we have. And then we would have to get those reprinted, and then we would need to look at some point going to a computerized version as well. I will say it's quite time consuming trying to flip through card sets to get to the call types that we need to and find the questions that we need to ask. So we're looking at a lot of man hours to try to get the current one back up to speed to where we need it to be. And then we would have to look at alternatives to make that a computerized system as well. But that would not allow us to have the structured law enforcement call taking that we currently don't have and is really needed.
Mr. Chairman, I've moved that we adopt Resolution R1212420-11.
All right, here the motion by Mr. Tuck. Mr. Tuck,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Yeah, who's right there? Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
Ms. Bainsley.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Ms. Gibson.
Nope, you got them.
Thank you for your time. You have a good
Thank you, Judson.
Thank you. All right. Consideration of a resolution appropriating funds for the fiscal year 2019 to 2020 budget adjustments. Resolution R121-42012. And Ms. Ashley's going to present that.
Good evening again. Excuse me. Before you is just a resolution to do some more year-end cleanup. This is something that we do every year. Typically, it's done a little bit earlier, but we've had the software implementation going on full steam ahead, so that has consumed quite a bit of time this fall. The year-end adjustments are just, we go through and we look at the budget every year to see where some departments may have come in over budget due to things that we were unable to anticipate. So I'll give you a quick summary, and then if there's anything that you want more information on, please just let me know. For the county attorney's department, we split the county attorney's salary between county and DSS. We do our best to estimate the number of hours that he will be spending with DSS when we do our budget, and then inevitably it can come in a little above or a little below. So when we were preparing the fiscal year 20 budget, we assumed a 55-45 split. With that being 55% county attorney, 45% DSS, it actually came in a little higher at 60-40. So the county actually incurred a little more of the cost than DSS did. And for that reason, we need about an $8,500 adjustment to the county attorney budget there, and we're recommending that that come from the DSS budget. VSTOP Paralegal, that's a grant that we have, and due to various employee elections during open enrollment, that can sometimes come in a little above the grant funds available. So that is the reason for the request of $2,500 adjustment to the VSTOP Paralegal line. And we do recommend that that come from the Commonwealth's attorney, since that program is directly related to the Commonwealth's attorney. Fire and Rescue Ancillary Services, we have some expenditures there with Blue Ridge EMS that came in a little higher than average or than anticipated when we were doing our budget. So again, we're recommending that we take that from the EMS budget as of June 30, 2020, since they are directly related, to cover that cost. That was about $7,400. Refuse collection, I believe that was the biggest adjustment that we had this year. That is related to an increase in refuse collection costs. And we originally, if you remember, we did a contingency fund transfer of $500,000 to CSA earlier in the year. Good news is that we ended up only needing about $300,000 of that, so we had some funds left over there, and so that's the reason for recommending that we actually transfer funds from the CSA department to cover the overage and refuse collection as kind of a reallocation of that original contingency fund transfer there. And then the final is for the community college. We have an annual contribution every year, and when they sent in the fiscal year 21 budget, it was accidentally paid, and so rather than refunding the money, they just said, you know, if you want, we can keep it and just apply it to your next year's payment. So we're just recommending an allocation there from the finance department to cover that, since it was an accounts payable error. Any questions? Sorry, a couple more categories there. Supplemental appropriation, clerk of the circuit court, $15,786. The clerk has some money that they collect each year. It's state money, but they don't revert. It doesn't revert to the state. However, the state does ask that the clerk send that over to the county for safekeeping. So the clerk of the court receives some funding from the technology fund from the state, but that is never really a sure number. They don't really know until you get to the end of the year how much they're going to get. So what they do is at the end of the year, they look to see how much they actually incurred in costs versus what they received from the state in TTF funds, and then they'll use those, what they call non-reverting funds, to make up the difference. So that is that supplemental appropriation that we're requesting there, is to make up the difference in the TTF funding that we get from the state. And then finally, a contingency fund transfer, $15,727, roughly what we had left in contingency after that CSA transfer that we did. There was a bank stock tax that we received this year, a refund request that covered, I think it was 3 or 4 prior years, amounting to, I believe it was about $48,000 that we had to refund. And so we were able to cover that with operational savings for the most part, but we need an additional $15,000 from the remaining contingency funds to cover that. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I make a motion that we approve Resolution R121420-12. 13.
All right, Eric, motion from Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Tuck?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bainsley?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. I think you are next too, right?
Yes, sir.
Consideration of a resolution to reappropriating unexpected fiscal year 2020 grant funds. Resolution R121420-13.
Okay, so again, this is more fiscal year end cleanup for the prior year. We have grants that cross fiscal years, and so what happens is we get to the end of the year, we have some funds remaining, and we actually just need to reappropriate them to the next fiscal year in order for us to continue spending down those grant funds. If you would like for me to go into any more detail on any of these, I can. Most of these are the ones that we have every year. The Circuit Court Records Preservation Program, they typically get the funding towards the end of the previous year, but they don't actually spend it until the fall, so we almost always have a reappropriation there. This year, ICAC actually received a Hero Forensic Examiner grant, but due to COVID and everything that's been going on with that, they haven't been able to hire the position, so they've gotten an extension there, so that's the reason for the reappropriation request there. There are 3 other ICAC grants that, again, it's the way that they run, it crosses fiscal years, so we have to reappropriate the remaining funds in order to be able to spend money there. DMV grants, same thing. They run October to September, so we always cross fiscal years. And then Fire and Rescue, they had received a grant for some swift water equipment that they have purchased, weren't able to pay the bills prior to June 30, so we need to reappropriate the funding there. Any questions? This is exciting stuff, guys. Come on.
Money. Everybody that get to the boring point, and they all got up and left.
So you should have had me at the beginning. Everybody would have left.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adopt Resolution R121420-13.
Again.
Again.
Mr. Motion, Mr. Tuck?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mrs. Bainsley?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Mr. Davis? Oh, yeah. Chair votes yes.
Glad I can make you guys smile.
Let's see. Next, consideration of a resolution in opposition to any legislative effort to repeal or revise the judicial doctrine of qualified immunity for law enforcement officials. Resolution R121-42014. Sheriff Miller.
Yes, sir.
Must be getting close to closing time. Here comes the sheriff.
That's right. I'm there with you.
It says right here you have 30 seconds.
Awesome. I can do it. Hey, first off, I would like to thank you all, Mr. Chair, members of the board, for being able to come up here and speak to you tonight. And it is an honor and to be able to come up and speak to each one of you all and represent the men and women of law enforcement in Bedford County. As myself, the major, the command staff, the captains, and the lieutenants, as we've talked this year to our deputies, one of the major concerns and worries that they have is the way qualified immunity was thrown around in Richmond. And I don't think taken as serious as it should have been taken in Richmond. So with the scrutiny that Richmond has brought us, and the General Assembly of Virginia is considering a possible repeal and the revision again of the judicial doctrine of qualified immunity for law enforcement again. Anyone advocating ending qualified immunity or altering the conditions of sovereign immunity does not appreciate why these statutes actually exist. The doctrine of qualified immunity grants government officials performing discretionary functions of immunity from civil suits unless the plaintiff shows that the official violates clearly established statutory constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. Now, this does not protect those who are involved in misconduct or criminal misbehavior. It protects everyone else from frivolous civil suits that would keep officers intertwined in costly court costs that would hold no merit. To be blunt, a lucid person would knowingly assume, no lucid person would knowingly assume the requirements of a law enforcement officer without the safeguards of qualified immunity affords. Those who lack the legal knowledge would invent opportunities to seek civil judgments against officers who acted within the law that would be extraordinarily cost to the citizens of the community over the cost of legal defense for deputies simply enforcing community laws. Qualified immunity protects law enforcement officials from frivolous and harassing lawsuits while allowing full trials for any case with minimal merits. Any legislative repeal or revision of qualified immunity would manifestly harm law enforcement by putting law enforcement officers at constant risk of unjustified lawsuits for almost every action that they would take. Would further require the taxpayers of Bedford County to pay for the defense of any and every claim against law enforcement officials. Moreover, the risk of liability would reduce the number of otherwise highly qualified individuals willing to work in law enforcement, specifically Bedford County. The attached proposal and resolution that you have asks for that Bedford County oppose any legislative repeal or revision of the judicial doctrine of qualified immunity and urge the county's delegates to the General Assembly to oppose any such effort. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve resolution R121420-14.
Okay. You heard Mr. Davis's motion. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Tuck?
Absolutely, yes.
Do I?
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Ainsley?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all for your good work.
Thank you, sir.
Don't forget your midnight curfew.
That's right. Y'all stay off of 122, 1201.
Okay, next is consideration of a resolution to award a contract to Apex Towers LLC for broadband tower maintenance and inspection services, resolution R121420-15. Mr. Pitts.
All right, this is in the very near future, the Broadband Authority is going to be assuming ownership and therefore maintenance responsibilities for the broadband towers that are completed by Blue Ridge Towers. So in order to prepare for that, we did a request for proposals earlier this summer, and we received one proposal from Apex Towers. We have interviewed Apex Towers. We've had them come to every site. Quite frankly, they've been very helpful with us along the whole an analysis of the different sites and towers, and they're very, very familiar with what needs to be done and the status of the towers and so forth. So what this proposal was for was to have tower maintenance services, inspections, some various miscellaneous repairs that are also included within that. There are a few items that we would probably take care of ourselves that help drive down the cost a little bit, that we felt that we can handle, that weren't necessarily tower related, but maybe a ground related, with some conditions on the ground that our maintenance staffs can handle ourselves without burdening our timeframes on that. So what the cost is $26,606 per year. There is an escalation. The proposed contract is for a 6-year term. The concept behind this is that as a broadband authority assumes control of these towers over the upcoming months and years, the broadband authority will be able to cite other cell phone providers and potentially broadband carriers on the towers themselves that'll pay for a monthly lease to be on that tower. So honestly, if we can just get one lease from what most of these market rates are for these leases, if we can just get one lease, one co-location on one tower, it will pay for these maintenance services per year. So that's the kind of concept behind this, that this will be a wash in the future in terms of we'll have revenue to pay for this. So anyways, that's a recommendation in front of you.
All right, any questions? Hearing none.
I have a question. How closely, I mean, we really don't have a good idea when the BRISnet is being live and when it's going to be active. Is this tied to a certain date, Mr. Harrison?
No, I mean, remember, it's two different things. I mean, these are the towers themselves. I mean, this doesn't have to do with BRISnet and their internet service and their antennas. This is literally just the pole in the ground and making sure there's power to it and that the pole is meeting all the inspections and so forth and so on. So we'll be, as we've discussed in the last couple of board meetings, we're very close to assuming control of these towers. You know, we've been talking about how Blue Ridge Towers has got to substantial completion, they're really close to getting final completion. We'll talk about that a little bit more later this evening. And anyways, as soon as we get the final completion, we own these towers and we have to have somebody on retainer in order to help us with this.
Do you hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, you heard the motion, Mr. Tuck, to approve resolution R121-42015. Mr. Tuck?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bainsley?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, I think we got one more. Consideration of a resolution approving certain change orders and resolving certain other administrative matters for the broadband project with Blue Ridge Towers. Resolution 121-42016, Mr. Hitt.
And I'm going to get this kick-started, and I'm hoping that George Candelas is on the phone, and there might be a couple others who can help me out with this in terms of if there's questions regarding details. So as we've been discussing with the board, we're quickly coming to the end of this project with Blue Ridge Towers and trying to get the accounting of this project finished up. To be consistent with what we've done in the past, we've always brought every change order over a certain amount of money to the board for approval, the authority for approval, and we want to be consistent with that, and this falls within that category. There's 4 change orders that need to be considered. Number 7, which would be number 7 for the whole project, is an additional 3/4 miles of additional fiber that was used for the Big Island Tower. That's a cost of $50,850. Change order 8 really ends up being a no-cost change order, as it is a kind of swap out in order for the temporary microwave, the costs associated with a temporary microwave hop to Manita for the fiber installation that is anticipated to be installed by mid-February by Zytel at Blue Ridge Tower's expense. So this was really, it was just ended up being a no-cost change order. Change order number 9 is all about Weeks Valley, and it's a lot of site improvements and site changes that needed to be considered, and that was an $88,000 change order. And the final one is for an additional 1.13 miles at the Manita Tower site for fiber, and that's ends up totaling $77,045. So grand total, these 4 change orders add up to $215,895. With all the other aspects of this project, I was asking staff, I said, I was like, well, do we have the funds in the budget to pay for this? And the answer is yes. So we look back at the overall project budget, and once you subtract out all these change orders, that would leave a net of, I don't remember the exact number, $70,000 and change in terms of a project budget balance. After you subtract out all the retainage and everything else, assuming that we let that go in the near future. So there are funds in the budget to cover these change orders. So that's all I have for right now.
Mr. Chair. I buy stone on a regular basis in our business, and sometimes we bought lots of it. And I realize there's got to be some work going into this project, but $88,000 for soil stabilization gravel seems really, really high. Have you seen this itemized, Mr. Harris?
I have, and well, other than what's in the packet, that's what I know. George Candelas might be able to give a little bit better explanation. He's inspected these on site. If we want to ask him to chime in.
George, you're out there?
Yes, I'm here. That's change order number 9, I believe you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Let me give you a little background on that. Weeks Valley is what we're talking about. During the engineering phase for Blue Ridge Tower, they took soil samples for the soil there and what's called core drilling for the compactability. There's several tests that are done. Those tests came back positive that it was good soil, and it was determined that they would proceed on. Once excavation began, it became apparent pretty quickly that we were pulling out boulders about the size of VWs. It was basically what's called a fill. You have cut and you have fill. The cut is on the mountain side of the road, and the fill is on the, let's say, valley side of the reservoir side. So in that case, we shifted the location of the tower foundation slightly. This is what's called a block foundation. That's approximately 25 feet by 25 feet by 8 foot deep, full of concrete. In the process of doing that, we had to do an awful lot of excavating and hauling away. That was accounted for, and then the bank needed to be stabilized because it became much bigger than the original design. If you remember the original design, we had a retaining wall that was going to be on the uphill side. Well, after we got it stabilized, that retaining wall was it wasn't necessary after that. Therefore, that money, since it was an approved change order, was, so to speak, integrated into the overall earthwork as a credit. And so Blue Ridge Tower and their subcontractor who handled the excavation, DNR Earthworks, DNR did an extremely good job in a very difficult situation. That location is only about 100 feet by 100 feet and then drops off about 100 feet. So that was a fairly difficult excavation, and then compaction of soil with a riprap retaining wall, very similar to what you see down at Smith Mountain Lake. So in the process of all of that, it was extra labor for the crew because the steel had to come in, and it had to be brought in, and instead of at one time, it had to be brought in by sections and then hoisted in sections, and therefore the additional crane work was necessary. I supervised the majority of this meeting. I was there, and I'm satisfied with the change order, the amounts of soil, and the additional crew work, and the additional crane charges, and in addition, the credit to the original change order that was placed back in the June time frame. And that nets out to be about $88,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I can explain the other change orders if you'd like when it comes to the fiber.
Well, that was going to be my question. I thought all fiber was in the original contract.
That is correct. We contracted with 11 miles of fiber, and that's what I want you to remember is 11 miles. And the engineering for the permitting from either VDOT or AEP or Southside Electric or whatever in relationship to where the fiber is somewhat of a more of an art than a science when it comes to estimating where you can tie in to the existing fiber. So the fiber that we were laying ties in to a larger fiber network. That larger fiber network happens to be Mid-Atlantic Broadband, but it could tie into Verizon or whoever, but we wanted to go with Mid-Atlantic Broadband. So when you are laying fiber, you're doing it, the cable is measured in strand. So as a good example, you could have a 96 strand cable, and those individual strands that are about the size of a fishing line carry a certain amount of data. So sometimes you may think that you'll be able to tie in at one of those cabinets that you see. Those are called optical remote mods or remote service mods. You may think you're going to be able to tie into this one, but you may not be able to. And you might have to go further down the road, or you become lucky and you get it closer to your location, which is great. And that's actually helped us and happened to us in coordinating with Zytel / Raypass and getting the exact measurements. We placed, or BRT placed 10.81 miles, leaving us a surplus of 0.19. So the approval of these change orders will not surpass that 11 miles. These are just to basically make it real, because now we're in the phase of the project where we're truing up the credits and the debits for the entire project. And so the approval of these just make it real, but basically we stayed within the 11-mile budget. As a good example, at New London, it was estimated that it was going to take about a mile of fiber to get to the water tank. Instead, it only took about 2,000 feet. So you see, you saved whatever the dip was at 3,280 feet. So that comes as a credit to the county. And there were several other locations that were like that too. In addition to the microwave link now between Huddleston and Moneta, there was supposed to be 1.3 or so miles of fiber to Huddleston. Now there's a microwave link there, so that 1.3 then comes back into the 11 miles of fiber.
Does that come back, George? Excuse me, does that come back at around $77,000 credit?
Retail, yes, sir.
Because I've heard numbers on installed fiber optic cable between $20,000 and $35,000 a mile, and I'm having a hard time understanding how they put a mile in for $77,000. Have you looked at
there are three ways to put in fiber. One is what's called direct buried, and that is basically just slicing up the land and putting a fiber optic cable in there. That's what's called shielded, and that would fit the dollar amount that you're talking about. The second way of bringing fiber is to attach it to a pole, and then the third way is to actually place the fiber in conduit, and then it's the fiber inside the conduit pulled a certain amount of distance, and that's the one that has the higher value. So the fiber in the conduit method is about 77,000. The hanging the pole on the pole would be around 40, and then the direct buried would be somewhere around the 25 to 30,000 range.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Do I hear a motion?
So moved. We got to get home before midnight. We can't be on the road after midnight. I did.
Mr. Tuck made a motion to approve 121-42016. Mr. Tuck?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Davis? Yes. Mrs. Bainsley?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay. And board committee reports.
I don't think we had any for this evening.
Board comments, anyone? I have one comment, I'll make it real short. I would recommend staff to make sure that the funds from CARES Act don't disappear, knowing that we have all this broadband stuff, and everybody out there, it seems like they've zeroed in on this CARES Act and want a little chunk of the kitty. And I would hope that from this point on that we would take that into consideration, because we need to deal with some important issues.
So I beat you to the punch on that one, Mr. Scott. I kind of sent word to staff that as of tonight's meeting, that was it in terms of CARES Act money until the new year and the board identifies its priorities. So, I don't anticipate bringing forward any more CARES Act related items until we have a good discussion as to how the board desires to spend those additional funds. So that's how I'm approaching this.
Thanks, sir.
I have a comment. I'll be brief too. I was really have been gratified to see the outpouring of support from our citizens who strongly, obviously, are in favor of their First Amendment rights, and we're all here on this board in favor of that. and I look forward to us coming up with a resolution that has some teeth in it that we can bring forward. Also, I'm very concerned about the need for this, because obviously we wouldn't be talking about this if it weren't for our governor, who clearly wants to infringe on our constitutional rights that we've all sworn to uphold, and going so far as to want to remove the immunity from our police. I just think it's unconscionable in what they're trying to do and break down on the citizens of Virginia.
Okay. Next is the board appointments. Bridget?
All right.
I mean, I think there's a resolution with a number of choices in front of you as to appointments for a variety of positions, whether it's Ag Board, BRWA, Board of Zoning Appeals, Behavioral Health, other ones as well. I know that we've sent applications to the board for consideration, so it's really just a matter of going through these one by one and making the board making their appointments.
Okay, who wants to do that? Bridget?
Sure. The first one is for the ag.
Coming up to Mark.
The ag board, I'll come up to them.
Need a stool?
Ooh. I believe that's workplace harassment. Okay.
Ask if he needs a handicap ramp.
Yeah. Well, y'all approve that, right? I'll be back when it's up. Okay, so we decided to go ahead and get some of the appointments done now instead of in January, because some of these expire at the end of December. This way we can, people can move forward. So the first one is for the ag board. Lindsay Tomlinson currently serves. You can either reappoint, or if you have somebody else, you can appoint them in her place. So we just need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reappoint Ms. Tomlinson to the Ag Board. She's a very important part of that. She contributes to it at every meeting. She represents Liberty High School. And they need her there. They want her there. I want her there. There's the motion.
Okay, so
Mr.
we
Chairman,
need the chairman to.
motion's on the floor.
I was just saying if my AR person, Ag Board, excuse me, had answered me, because I was told he was through at the end of this year, but he has 4 more years, so I asked if he wanted to stay on 4 more years, but I hadn't heard back from him.
Okay.
All right, so you heard your motion?
Yes.
Is this a roll call vote or just?
You can just do a voice vote.
Up or down?
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay.
All right. The next one is for the Bedford Regional Water Authority. The 2 people that had been serving have served their 2 terms and cannot be reappointed. One of those people had been, due to reversion, a town and county split appointment that has reverted completely to a county appointment. So I sent you applications for Mr. Kevin Mealy and Mr. Anthony Gray. They seem to have a lot of support. I don't know if you guys have talked amongst yourselves or whatever, but we need either them to be appointed or somebody else to be nominated.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, let Charlotte do it.
Go ahead, Mr. Tuck was first, but he's yielding to you.
I'm yielding.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Jay Gray as the at-large member of the Bedford Regional Water Authority for the term January 1, 2021, ending December 31st, 2025.
Mr. Tuck, did you want to appoint someone?
You got to vote on that now,
hers
since it's on the floor. You got to vote.
Because we've got 2 positions.
All right, I heard the motion, all in favor, say yes.
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 Silence, yes.
Okay, is
And
that-
Mr. Chairman, I would like to appoint Kevin Mealy to fill the second at-large position on Bedford Regional Water Authority.
Heard Mr. Tuck's motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Feel the growl snoring,
Okay.
All right.
The next one is for the Board of Zoning Appeals. This isn't a direct appointment. You make a recommendation to the court
to appoint. Ricky Wilkerson is the current appointee for District 5. So it's just a question of, do you want to reappoint Mr. Wilkerson, or do you want to appoint someone else?
I already asked him, and he said yes, so I
Okay.
recommend we reappoint him.
Okay.
Can
Need
he
a
call
motion.
for his own motion, or shall I make the motion for him?
There's nothing against you doing it yourself, so.
All right, I make a motion that we appoint Ricky Wilkerson for another term on the zoning board.
Now you got to call for the vote.
I am not an elected
Say aye.
official.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Your next one are just a couple of annual appointments that you normally do for Horizon Behavioral Health. Right now, it has to be Andy Crawford, as he is the Director of Social Services, so that would be your first one. The second appointment would
So
be...
moved.
Okay, we'll go ahead.
There you go.
Aye.
But you heard the motion by Ms. Ainsley, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay. The second one is to appoint the citizen representative. It's, Horizon is asking that you reappoint Jim Sakima for a third term.
So moved.
All right, you heard Mr. Tuck's motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Kevin.
John, you out there?
Yep, I said aye.
All right.
Okay, the next one, you have, I believe it's 4, yeah. It's for the local board of building code appeals. They all serve at large, so it's not like it's any specific district. Right now, you have Robert Flynn, John Roller, Thomas Scott, and Jeff Witt. You can either reappoint or you can choose someone else. What?
You said Thomas Scott, I said I don't want.
Thomas, a separate Thomas.
I move we appoint all of them, reappoint all of them.
Okay. Is
All
that,
right, you heard Mr. Johnson's motion, all in favor of reappointing all of them, say aye.
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 okay, the next one is for the Economic Development Authority. This is for District 7. It's currently served by Jim Messier, so it's a question of whether you want to reappoint Mr. Messier or reappoint someone else, or appoint someone else.
I need to make a courtesy call, which I've been unable to do, so I'm going to put this off to our next meeting,
Okay.
since his term doesn't end till the end of
Right,
January.
right, okay. So we'll just put this one off to January. Okay, your next one, these are just your yearly appointments for the Tri-County Lakes. Let's see, you need to make a motion to appoint a supervisor as a supervisor representative. I believe that's either you or you. Right
I'm
now.
the alternate.
Okay, so do you want to, if you guys want to make a motion to keep it that way or change it, it's up to you.
No, definitely don't change it. No.
I'll make a
I
motion
quit.
to keep it that way.
Thank you.
Makes it a little hard because I'm chairman.
Okay.
So we need to vote on that?
Aye.
Yes.
All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and then currently Dennis Novitsky is the citizen at large appointee. I don't know if
I'd like to
anyone's
make a
talked
motion to
him.
reappoint Dennis
Okay,
Novitsky.
yeah.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 We're almost there. Next for the Tri-County Lakes Administrative Commission. Someone needs to make a motion to reappoint the county administrator. He always serves as a county rep in his position.
So moved.
Sorry, Robert.
All in favor say aye.
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 All right, last two. The Roanoke Valley Area MPO, Mickey currently serves. We need a motion to appoint a supervisor as your representative.
So moved.
To reappoint.
Well, who you saying to
Me.
appoint?
You.
Oh.
Said your name. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay. And the last one is for the Bedford County Social Services Board. Supervisor Parker currently serves. I need a motion to either reappoint.
So
or-
moved.
Okay.
All in favor say aye.
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 And that is all we have.
Thank you.
That was quick.
County Administrator report.
two things I had under my agenda item that I wanted to briefly discuss. Number one was the 2021 Board of Supervisors meeting schedule. Obviously, this is not an action item. This is really just more for information. Kind of heard from a number of board members about wanting to, not necessarily with a desire to have more meetings, but making sure that we are covering everything that needs to be covered so that the board feels that they have enough information to make good decisions. So I've heard from a number of board members saying that, number one, it would be good to have 2 voting meetings per month. We experimented this past year with just having one on the second meeting of the month, but I've been, again, told by a number of board members that they'd like to try to have 2 voting meetings a month. We may have some small agendas, but that's probably good than having one long agenda at the end of the month where those meetings could last, 4 hours or something like that. The other thing was making sure we tried to have as many work sessions as we could. While that would be, again, I've heard from some board members saying that there's a number of items that may come up on some of the voting agenda items that they probably would have liked to have a little bit more discussion about at a work session to get a little bit more deeper dive before they're making a decision at a future meeting. So we've added a number of work sessions into this calendar. Now, sometimes during budget year, budget kind of dominates the discussion, and we'll and a lot of these budget work sessions are just kind of placeholders in case we actually need them. We may need more, we may need less, but at least they're on the list. Again, our thought, and Bridget and I, when we were drafting this, was we'd rather have more meetings on the calendar and then take them away if we don't need them than the opposite, where it's hard to get the group together when there's not a meeting scheduled. So anyways, I think we would adopt this at our next, yeah. So at the organizational meeting at January 11th, we'll adopt this, but I just wanted to kind of put this out there beforehand in case we were missing the mark, or if you wanted to see something different before you adopted this calendar at your next meeting on January 11th.
You want to check some of the dates? They're not right.
Oh. Okay.
They're not Monday nights. And I can't remember, but I was adding them to my work calendar already, and some of the dates were wrong.
Keep you on your toes. Okay.
Well, it was in the agenda.
We'll double check that in case we need a
it's just like,
administrative error.
it's like 2 months you were on this year's calendar instead of next year's.
Probably gonna feel like that.
My personal feeling is you're right on target. Sometimes we feel rushed, and I feel like we all up here get ready where we want to go home, and we rush through things where we owe the citizens better. Just, looking into these items and stuff like that. And also the work sessions, I like the idea of big name items and things that really affect a lot of people in budget. To be in a work session before it gets to the voting stage, so we can discuss it rather than have to make quick decisions that night, be under the pressure to do something.
And I think it allows us, it's a good thing for us it allows us to telegraph ahead of time. If there's a deadline for something, we can make sure that we discuss this, a month before that deadline occurs. So, it's gives us a little bit better flexibility too. So I think it'll be a win-win.
Yeah, why we meet on Mondays?
I don't know, it's always been that way.
Mondays are absolutely killer for me. And, and I'm sure you other folks know what I'm talking about, but then, I would love to see this move to a Tuesday.
If you wanted it to move to a Tuesday, that's something you would vote on when you change your bylaws in January.
Honestly, I run all day Monday, because it's the busiest day of the week for me. Not that you guys should change just for me, but I wonder if y'all have similar feelings.
Monday's a kick your tail day.
The only other thing, and I don't know off the top of my head when these other entities meet, but sometimes we may just want to make sure if we change the date that we're not conflicting with like the town of Bedford.
There's
or
a
the
lot of
school
meetings
board or
scheduled,
something like that.
scheduled around Monday. There's a lot of meetings scheduled around Monday.
Planning commission meets on Tuesday.
Planning commission meets
Yeah, I
on
mean, there's-
Tuesday,
there's-
and the EDA meets.
You only got Monday,
They meet
Tuesday, Wednesday,
first
Thursday.
They meet
so
first
that's not
Thursday.
the same. But the planning commission meets in the same room tomorrow.
EDA meets on Thursday, Ag Board meets on Mondays, Wednesdays. I mean, everybody else's meetings work around ours.
Yeah, I would also add that when I am traveling, I haven't done that much this year due to COVID, but when I'm traveling, oftentimes because our meeting's on Monday, I can delay my departure until Tuesday morning so that I can attend the meeting and still, get my work done, right? So if we moved it to a Tuesday, it's probably more likely if I'm having to travel that I might not be able to attend the meeting.
We'll discuss that at our organization.
All right. The only other item I had, and there's a memo in the packet about this, I've received a little bit more inquiries lately, especially with the increased number of coronavirus cases. And, tonight's a good example of that with some impacts in terms of this meeting this evening. We just appointed a whole bunch of people from different committees, authorities, commissions, and so forth. They all have the same struggle that this board does in terms of staff and members being able to meet, and just trying to anticipate if coronavirus continues to spread at the rate it's spreading over the next few months. I just worry that some of our committees, authorities, commissions may run into situations where they may not be able to meet in person. We're at a point where we're at the end of the year, so we don't necessarily need to take action at this point, but I just kind of want to introduce the thought that at the January 11th meeting, the Board of Supervisors may want to adopt a temporary ordinance allowing the different committees, authorities, commissions to have virtual meetings at their option. That doesn't mean they have to, but at least allows them to have the option of doing that if they choose to. That ordinance can have a certain number of months, 3, maybe 4 months that that the board may allow that to happen, can reevaluate it at that point in time. If it needs to be extended, the board can entertain that at that point in time. But just trying to telegraph ahead and anticipating what may be occurring it's all about continuity of government, and allowing some of these virtual meetings to occur allows us to continue doing the business that we do, even though it may be in a virtual environment. And like I said, it's optional. The different committees and commissions, they may not want to do that, and that's perfectly fine too. So anyways, unless there is terrible opposition to this, we thought we'd work at a staff level and have that ready for the January 11th meeting.
Okay.
That concludes my report.
Okay, county attorney report.
And Mr. Chair, I would call for a motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711A8 of the Virginia Code, specifically regarding consultation of legal counsel as pertains to the Bedford County Broadband Project.
Okay, anyone make a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Davis made the motion. Mr. Davis? Yes. Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Tuck?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Bainser? Mrs. Bainser?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes, I will let you know I'm feeling pretty under the weather, so I may have to cut out early depending on how long it goes.
All right, chair votes yes.
And we're going to meet across the hall at the meeting room across the hall.
We coming back?
No, sir.
No.
Not coming back here?
And for those virtually participating, I'm opening the Zoom right now, so you guys can go ahead and log on.